What's up, everybody? Here I am out by the shopping center, close to midnight here. And I just got me something to drink here, and be heading home pretty soon. I thought I'd make a video around this time regarding an article that I saw on Facebook. It's from Classic Rock magazine. And basically it's a little interview with Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant. He's talking about the new record he's come out with called Carry Fire. He talks about, the time he was living in Austin, Texas, which if I would have known about it ahead of time, we would have came out there and visited and got his autograph, a few pictures with him. But we weren't a know. But we didn't know about this until the last minute. And basically the headline says before the interview starts is that bands, basically, let me put it this way. Robert Plant is asking fans to stop living in the past and be more accepting to newer groups. He's always moving forward. He's always trying different things, He recorded an album with Alison Krauss called Raising Sand a couple years ago, and I guess won a Grammy. He did an album with a group called Band of Joy, which basically was a covers album of songs that nobody knows about. And of course, he still does Led Zeppelin material here and there. But one thing he will not do is a Led Zeppelin reunion anymore. People ask about that all the time. There was a possibility of them getting back together in 2018. I guess he shot that down, from what I understand. But I want to make this video in describing that little comment he said about us being more accepting to new groups. With all due respect, Mr. Plant, we understand where you're coming from. People shouldn't really live in the past all the time. It's just that the issue is, we'll basically put forth, the newer groups suck. Majority of the new groups that have been coming out ain't really rock and roll. And the ones that are really true rock and roll, or were rock and roll from the start, has toned down their melodies, toned down their sound, and have become middle of the road rockers, basically. Let me give you a couple examples. Probably the biggest of all, Bon Jovi. In the 80s, they started out raw, raunchous, powerful. Now, all of a sudden, they fill in the arenas full of middle-aged women who still desire for this long singer who used to have hair out to here, but now has a more mature-looking haircut. He still looks good for his age. If I didn't have my husband, I would be with him. That's for sure. Yeah, we all know this scenario. Or Def Leppard, who was photographed, pour some sugar on me, gets played on those mild rock stations. Give me a break. But that's basically the rock and roll that's out there. And people my age just don't really agree with it. Let me explain why. The rock and roll songs we had back then were better performed, were better written, were better arranged, and they were better produced. A lot of time, energy, and effort went in those songs, in those albums. A lot of work. See, these were the days before auto-tune, all these digital editing, all these, technical devices that we have nowadays. That any person can go into a recording studio, put an auto-tune on their crummy voice or on their instruments, or have other session players make up for the guitar player that you see in the fucking video. Anybody can make a song nowadays, post it on YouTube, and boom, you get 1,000 hits. Get signed to a major label. The bands that we had at that time, whether it's Eagles, Jefferson Starship, Aerosmith, or Cheap Trick, Kansas, they had a lot of energy put in those songs and those albums they put out. And let's be clear, a good majority of those songs had some pretty fucking damn good stories to tell. Here it is, 2019, and we're still trying to figure out the true meaning behind Hotel California, for Christ's sakes. And we're still trying to figure out the story behind Year of the Cat by Al Stewart. Another awesome track from back then. And it's also safe to say that 2112, the concept side one piece of from the album the same name by Rush, foretold the coming of censorship starting back in 1985 with the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center, led by some ugly bitch named Tipper Gore, who I still don't like to this day. And I still don't like her husband as well. Oh yeah, but that stuff is still out there. This stuff, fucker, this stuff is out there because of fuckwads like you. You talk about the environment, you talk about, we gotta save the planet, we gotta, yeah, bullshit, homie. Why don't you start riding the bike to your next congressional meetings, you fucker? Instead of driving these luxurious sports cars. Now back to what I was saying, majority of the bands that are out there today, they're taking their cues from bands like Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam, Nirvana. They're trying to sound ruckus, they're trying to sound powerful. I mean, like, let me give you an example. The White Stripes. I was never a fan of the White Stripes, sorry to say, folks. I'm a guy that likes vocals, guitars, bass, and drums. Some two-piece group who just goes guitar and drums, vocals, minus the bass, doesn't cut it well for me. They're coming out with all these songs. They're trying to be ruckus. They're trying to be erasure. They're trying to really be real rockin' back then. That like it was, back when the 50s and 60s. But it just doesn't get me excited. It's probably one of the big reasons why I listen to more avant-garde stuff, like any project that Bill Laswell has, or any project that Justin K. Broadwick of Godflesh has under his sleeve, or Mick Harris, the former Napalm Death drummer, who has Scorn, Lull, other projects as well. He's done collaborations with with a couple guitar players, one of them being James Plotkin. You remember that Collapse album I reviewed on one of my videos on my channel? Yeah, go check that record out. the majority of the bands out there today really need to listen and absorb these songs. And here's something else I want to say as well. With all these classic rock stations popping up left and right, I have an issue with that. Now, back in Michigan, the Detroit area, a radio station called WLLZ, nicknamed Detroit's Wheels, has came back on the radio. And its format is classic rock. Kind of like doing the same thing that a station called The Eagle is doing here in the Houston area. They're playing classic rock, but they're also mixing up with other classic rock, like say Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue, or Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses, while playing the same stuff we hear by Aerosmith, like either Walk This Way or Sweet Emotion. Back in Detroit, there was this one station out there that would just only stick to the same songs over and over and over. Whether it's More Than a Feeling by Boston, Hotel California, and the same Led Zeppelin songs here and there and here. Same old Walk This Way, which we heard countless how many fucking times, which I don't want to hear no more. And I was listening to a program a couple months back, and he said, you know, the thing about it is that they have to stick to those kind of songs to keep the viewers listening. That's what those kind of people only identify. Like, say, Judas Priest. They'll announce that Judas Priest is coming to this arena here to promote their new album, Firepower. But they won't play anything from Firepower. They'll just go back to playing either Living After Midnight, Breaking the Law, Got Another Thing Coming, or something else. So when the fans go out there who only knows those hits, they hear songs like Dreamer Deceiver or Solar Angels, they'll be like, what's this song? I don't know this song. I want to hear the hit songs, you know. I remember one time I told my sister about this. She was messaging me on Facebook and my text message saying, yo, should make a video playing this song, like Thunderstruck by AC/DC or Paranoid by Black Sabbath. I'm like, Michelle, people know Paranoid like the back of their hands. And be honest with you, as a Sabbath fan I am, I'm up to here with that song myself. We heard it countless times, how many times before? Never mind Paranoid, I'm going to make a videotape of myself playing Lord of This World for her. See if I can catch her off guard. I guess you could say I'm disgruntled and dissatisfied with everything that's out there today. Well, you're right, I am. I guess you could say I'm one of those guys that wish the pure rock and roll was back in form, you know, was more back of acceptance, you know, not just, you know, the stuff we hear or we hear about, but in other cases, you know, like, basically, you know, now I don't have anything against the new groups that I mentioned. I just want these bands, you know, to start coming up with more energy in their music. Because I don't consider Imagine Dragons pure rock and roll. I heard some of that song Thunder that's out right now. That's not rock and roll, homie. That's just pop. That's just pop music, no matter what, top to bottom. I'm glad I got that out of my system. Basically, and to the kids out there, start expanding your horizons before you tell us to expand ours. Like, instead of praising bands like Motionless in White, just instead of just praising those kind of groups, praise, like, say, a guy named Billy Thorpe, who had a 3-album concept idea. Children of the Sun, 21st Century Man. I think there was another one out there that came before those two. Definitely worth checking out. Alright, I'm Dr. Earl. Thank you for listening to me rant, or listening to me bitch, piss and moan, or whichever. Subscribe to my channel. Do you agree or do you disagree? I'll see you guys later.